The following broadcast is a presentation of Mount Zion Media Ministry.
Solicit your prayer. It's a very simple one. Walking in the promises of God. Walking in the promises of God. There's a song that we sing that I thought about using to tag this sermon as a subject, and that is standing on the promises of God. But I chose not to use it, even though it's a good thing, because standing implies that I am stationary. And of course, the metaphor in that particular song is that we are taking a stance based on our beliefs. But again, standing also indicates the fact that we are stationary. And so I purposely didn't want to use it because I don't want us to be in a standstill mode right now. Because the world that we live in needs people who will not only declare what they believe and stand for it, but will do something. There's a time now for action. And so I chose walking. And in the Bible, walking implies movement, and it is a metaphor for life. And Enoch walked with God. He lived with God. Walk by faith, not by sight. Live, take steps, takes action based on faith and not what you see. In Ephesians, Paul says, walk worthy of the calling wherein we have been called. And again, the idea of living. And brothers and sisters, whether you choose to consciously or not, you are living or walking by something. And so what I want to suggest to you today is that we ought to be walking in the promises of God as we walk by faith. Pastor Simmons, how can I walk or live in the promises of God? I'm so glad you asked, because you know I like answering questions when I know the answer. And here it is. We first have to know what those promises are. And so first of all, we find the promises of God in the Bible. The Bible has been called a great promise book. And depending upon who you listen to, there are people who've done research, and they said they have numbered every promise in the Bible. But I don't try to do that because there's too many. And when you read some people, they'll say it's 3,000. You read somebody, they say it's 8,000. So I guess it's how you're looking. But what I do know is there are promises in there. And so when you read the Bible, when you study the Bible, you ought to read with an eye for recognizing promises. And where God makes a promise that applies to you, you ought to highlight it, you ought to write it down, you ought to repeat it for so many days until you get it in your spirit that this is what God has promised me. And then as you live, you walk in that promise. And then there are some promises, again, that we can find in the Bible that apply to us. But I believe, and it has been my experience, and it's the experience of people in the Bible, that there are times when God will speak to you, to me, and give you a promise about a particular situation in your life. When you know beyond the shadow of a doubt that while all of these other voices are pouring into your ear, people are trying to get in your face and tell you this and tell you that, then what you have to say to yourself is, God talking to me? And when you get to the place and you know that you know that you know that God has spoken and made you a promise, then you got to walk in that promise. Because I'm a realist and I like being honest, I want to give you a word of caution. Beware of some people who think that they know what God has promised you. The Bible says you need to try the Spirit by the Spirit. I draw up sometime in shame when I watch Christian or religious television, whatever you call it. And there are these men and these women are making these claims that I see you out there. And God has promised you this, and he's promised you that. But in order for it to happen, you got to send me something. Send me a seed, $301. And after I get the $301 in 24 hours, your blessing gonna come. Go to the mailbox, do this and do that. It's in a cloth, it's in some water that supposedly came from some special place, but most likely came out of a faucet. You got to be careful. And then, not only on television, but even in your local church, even in the community, there are people who will walk up to you and claim they know what God has said to them about you. Do you know that if I listened to all of that, I wouldn't be at Mount Zion now? Because there are folk who told me God wanted me to leave Mount Zion, that he had something for me somewhere else. I said, well, until he tell me, I'm going to roll with what I got. And so just be careful. And so, because we can take anything to the extreme, but here's what I want to say to you, that there are genuine promises that God has made in his word, and they're clear, and that he makes to us as individuals and collectively sometimes as congregation, and we need to begin to walk in those promises. And you see, when you walk in those promises, the promises transform the way that you live. And in this text, we find a perfect example. Here it is. Abraham and Lot. You know the story of Abraham, most of you. God calls him and promises to bless him, but in order to bless him, he has to leave the land where his family is, and God is going to take him and give him a new land. And not only will it be for him, but it will be for his children, and by children it means for generations. That Abrahamic covenant of blessing, do you know that we are still walking in it today? Because we are the spiritual children of Abraham. And so God says to him, come on now, I'm going to bless you, going to make you great. I'm going to bless those that bless you, curse those that curse you. And so Abraham takes God at his word. He gets this promise through a revelation from God. And he decides when he leaves, not only to take his wife, he has no children, and he brings a nephew named Lot along with him. And so in chapter 13, they have a good problem. Good problem. Abraham and Lot come together. And the Bible says, and Lot was also moving from place to place along with Abraham. And he also had herds and herdsmen. He was also wealthy. And their wealth was so great that the land in which they were settled on could not accommodate all of their wealth. Here it is. Abram has sheep. Lot has sheep. The land could not accommodate the grazing of everybody's sheep. And so the herdsmen of Lot are arguing with the herdsmen of Abram over the land. Move those sheep out the way. Let us have that space. Now you move over. Same thing with the water. They were arguing over the water. Move your livestock. Let us put ours. And so the cattle and whatever other livestock they had. And they didn't just have that, but they had gold and silver. They were both wealthy, and they were so rich, the land could not accommodate both of them. And so Abram says to Lot, let's talk. You and I are relatives. We are people together. So We don't need to be arguing. We don't want to fall out about stuff. We don't want our herdsmen arguing over stuff. Look, says Abram, all of this land before us is ours. Let's separate so that we can separate our flock and so forth, and then the land can accommodate all of us. Listen at how wonderful Abram is in this negotiation. Lot, you choose what you want, and I'll take what's left. If you choose the land on the right, I'll take the left. If you choose the land on the left, I'll take the right. And so Lot looks and he observes and he says, I got sheep, other livestock, they need to graze. On this side, green pastures. They need water. It's over here. I need fertile ground. Have fertile ground, I got to have water. It's over here. Everything I need. And then there's this city, this wonderful metropolitan called Sodom, close by. Over here, it's dry. No water, no city. It's the country. Lot says, I'm no fool. I want that. Abraham says, okay, it's yours, and I'll take what's left. And Abram goes on just as content and happy as he could be. Lot goes on content, happy, patting himself on the back because he just negotiated the deal of a lifetime. He got the best while Abraham got the short end of the stick. So he thinks. Brothers and sisters, there are two people in this text, and I want to be like Abram, because Abram walked by faith in the promise of God. But Lot, on the other hand, instead of walking in the promises of God, he walked in what you and I would call common sense. Because it does make sense now. If you got livestock, that you need pasture land. It does make sense that if you got livestock or you want to grow plants, you need water. It does make sense if you're going to be selling products to be close to a metropolitan city where you have consumers and customers to buy what you got. That does make sense. Intellectually, when you just figure that up and do your business plan, it does sound good intellectually. And even if you're not the smartest person, you got common sense, and it makes sense. It makes no sense what Abram did. But you see, when you're not living or walking in common sense, but in the promises of God, what you do don't always make sense. What you do from an intellectual point of view doesn't always seem logical. But you can do like Abram and be content because you know that promises from God supersedes intellect and common sense. Lot made a decision based on what he saw. Abram made a decision based on what he believed. Listen, and I'm not, downing Lot, but let me just help us in case, like me, you have to make a decision. Don't be guilty of making decisions like Lot. I had a talk with Lot. I got in Lot's mind. And so Lot says, the reason I chose like I did, I told you what I saw, but I understood that my success based on the business I'm in, raising livestock, etc., depended on the land. Mr. Lot, your success was not in the land. was not in what you thought was producing a living for you. Abram, on the other hand, made a decision understanding that his success, his productivity, his fruitfulness was in the hand of God and not the land. Abram understood by faith that if you are in the hands of God, on the promises of God, the land didn't matter. Because God can bless you no matter what the land looked like. And if God chose not to bless you, it doesn't matter how green your pastures are. It doesn't matter how much water you got flowing through your valleys. If God chooses to back away from you, all of the resources in the world won't help you. Abram took the country. Lot took close proximity to the city. And again, Lot assumed that his proximity to the city was conducive to economic development. And all of those pieces were in place to make sure that economically he would be a viable person. But again, Abram understood that his economic viability was not based on proximity to consumers in a city, but it was based on the provision of God. And I'd rather have God's provision than to be in close proximity to folk that I think can help me get ahead. And it does make sense if you're going to have a business, but again, God's provision is better any day. And you see, if God had ordained what Lot did, it would have been cool. But trying to do that without God is a bad move. Let me show you two other things about Lot. And this is for the young people who are chronologically young, but also for the young people who are old in age but still young in mind. Let me tell you a mistake that Lot made when he was making this decision, not walking in the promises of God, but walking on his own maneuvering. Lot disrespected Abraham. He disrespected him. What do you mean, Pastor? Check this out now. Lot is Abraham's nephew. Abraham is the elder, and he's there because Abram invited him. And so when Abraham, his name was later changed, but in the text right now, he's still Abram. So Abraham, same person. And so when Abraham made this proposition, the respectful thing for Lot to do was to defer to his elder. Uncle Abe, I appreciate that you gave me the opportunity to choose whichever I want. That's mighty generous of you. But Uncle Abe, I'm going to let you make the choice. Uncle Abe, you've been good to me, and I trust your wisdom, and so you choose, and whatever you say, that's what I'll do. Young people, be careful about this manipulation, this trying to take advantage of situations and people. Be careful about using your common sense and intellect to scheme, because Lot really thought he was getting over on the old man. But that really wasn't the case. And so there's something nobling about deferring to your elders. And really there's something noble, period, about preferring others over yourself. Don't be always so anxious to jump in the front seat. Don't always be anxious to jump out. One of the things you've heard me say on more than one occasion, that there are some people who like to get on program committees so they can put themselves on program. But you ought not get on the committee to put yourself on there. Defer some time to somebody else, and then God will make a way for you because of your support of other people's opportunities. And here's the last thing, young people, and in chronological, and then some of you who old and young, Lot made this tragic mistake. He forgot the source of his blessing. He trying to get over on Abraham. And what he was missing, what he forgot, the only reason he had cattle, the only reason he had sheep, gold and silver, and all the stuff he had, the servants, was because of his association with Abraham. The promise that God made was to bless Abram. And because Lot was connected to him, he got blessed by virtue of the connection. And you got to be careful about wanting to get out from under your connection. And you got to be careful about who you connect to. I love everybody, but there are some people that I don't want to be connected to. If you cursed and messed up and tore up, I don't want your overflow. I got enough of that kind of overflow by myself, but I want to connect to somebody who's going to help me to be better. I want your overflow to take me where my own blessing can't take me. I'm strategic about certain relationships because I want somebody, I'm not using people, but I want somebody who can help me. Somebody said to me the other day, Pastor Simmons, we sure appreciate you because you just bring these good preachers here. And when you brought Terry Anderson from Houston, that man blessed us. There are two reasons I bring the Terry Andersons here. One, I want you to be blessed, but two, I want to be blessed. And Terry not only blesses me in the pulpit, but in his ministry. I can pick his brain. I can get some overflow. And so young people, don't be so quick to run and put up your little tent somewhere. If you're in Abraham's tent, and even if you ain't got but one room in the tent, you better hold on to that tent. So let me move on now and say what I really want to say today. And so Lot made all those mistakes, but Abram made the right decision. And when you're walking in the promises of God, you make decisions not based on what you see, not based on what you can figure, but based on the promise. And so look, if you will, back in chapter 12 of Genesis. And let me show you something here. While Lot is calculating what he's going to do, Abraham is meditating on what God has said he would do. He hears Lot, and Abram is no fool. He knows that Lot has chosen the best, but he's not tripping, he's not worried, he's not mad, because he's meditating on God's promise. Look at verse 2. He says, I will make you into a great nation. So here is one of the things I want you to take away today. When you have decisions to make them in light of the I wills of God. God has made some promises and said, I will. And look, if you will, again at verse 2. God said to Abraham, I will make you great. That little personal pronoun, I there, tells Abraham, you don't have to make yourself great. I'll do it for you. Abraham, you don't have to manipulate. You don't have to cheat. You don't have to go around fighting all these battles. I got you. I am going to make you great. All I need you to do is follow me, and I will do it for you. Listen, The I, personal pronoun, God said I would do it. That means while you have relationships and connections, the other people are not the people who make you great, but it is God who gives you these strategic relationships and put you in the place that you need to be, and he works through people to help make you what he wants you to be. And here's the good part. You don't have to spend money on chapstick. For those of you that didn't get that, you don't have to be kissing up to other people. Because if God is going to make you great, you don't have to worry about the people who want to convince you that you can't make it without them. And they want you to kiss up to them. Because God said, I will do it. I will make you great. And brothers and sisters, God has the capacity to make you anything that he wants you to be. Any promise that God has made, God has the capacity to make that promise a reality. And what you and I have to do is to walk in the I wills of God. Can I just give you a few generic? For example, God has promised the believer that if we go in his name, he said, I will be with you. Not part of the way, but always, even to the end of the world. And so you ought to walk like, live like, make decisions like, act like, that when you're making that decision, when you're taking that action, that God is with you. I wish I had a way to just make this jump out to you. And so, and I really don't have a great way, so I'm going to use a feeble way. I mean, it's just because I see someone, I can look at you the way you live, I can look at the way you walk, that you don't walk like God is with you. There's this defeated look on you. There's this uncertainty. I look at the steps you take in your life. You're stuck in places that you shouldn't be stuck in. God has more for you, but you settled for the less because you don't want to walk into the promises of God. He said, I'll be with you always, even to the end of the world. And if God is on your side, and so it was a good little while ago, and I had to go to Atlanta and to do the chapel program in the state senate, and then to meet with some folk afterward. And my cousin Albert was working back then, and so, and I was in revival, and so I couldn't leave the night before, but I had to be up in Atlanta early that morning. And so Albert said, I'll take you, you can ride with me. And so I was with him. Okay, and so we're going up 300, and y'all know they got a speed trap in Warwick, right? And so we blow through Warwick so fast.
Thanks for watching. Be blessed and continue walking in the light.